So are we really looking at what one whistleblower calls an extinction-level event? I mean, the idea of completely surrendering our lives, our minds, to some kind of digital matrix.
It sounds like something straight out of a movie, doesn't it?
It really does. But James Martinez, who says he exposed parts of the CIA's M-Culture program, he's sounding this incredibly urgent alarm.
Yeah, and he feels it's a critical story that's just, well, not getting the attention it deserves in the mainstream. He's really calling for people to wake up.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. We need to unpack these extraordinary claims from James Martinez.
Right. We'll trace the history he lays out, from those mind control programs, right up to what he sees as this imminent threat to our cognitive liberty.
And importantly, what he suggests we can actually do about it.
Exactly. The goal here is to really distill his testimony, get to the core insights, so you can quickly get a handle on the gravity of his message, understand his perspective fully.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. Lay the groundwork. What's James Martinez's background here?
Yeah.
He's very clear he wasn't a victim of M-Culture himself.
No, that's right. He states he actually exposed certain aspects of it. He says his involvement kicked off late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
And this was around the time that, well, what people were calling the abduction phenomena started getting more public traction.
Right, I remember some of that buzz.
And foundational to his whole story is his collaboration with Walter Bowart.
Walter Bowart, the author.
Yeah, the author of the 1978 book Operation Mind Control. Now, that book was quite significant. It was spurred by those church committee hearings in the 70s, the ones investigating intelligence abuses. And Bowart's book exposed the CIA's secret use of, well, unwitting human subjects, including American citizens.
Unwitting, so they didn't know they were part of research.
Exactly. Research involving neuroscience, torture, LSD. Martinez even mentions child abduction as part of this R&D project that he claims was brought over after World War II.
Wow.
And there's this really chilling detail he mentions about unwitting patients in hospitals supposedly being given LSD by the CIA. One person, tragically, reportedly jumped out a window.
That's horrifying. So Bowart's first book exposed that baseline. But then Martinez and Bowart published a volume 2.
They did. Operation Mind Control, Volume 2.
So what was new there? Where did they take it next? This is where it gets really interesting, right?
It does. According to Martinez, Volume 2 went deep into how behavioral science was allegedly used for some pretty wild stuff, like faking alien abductions.
Faking alien abduction. Oh.
Using techniques like hypnosis, something they termed screen and scramble memory technology.
Screen and scramble, what does that mean?
Basically, ways to implant false memories or maybe block real ones. That combined with drugs and some advanced tech used on the public.
Yep.
And Volume 2 apparently broadened the scope. It wasn't just about fake abductions. It argued behavior modification was used for keeping secrets safe, passing messages covertly, even disturbingly, for sex slavery and codifying information.
So manipulating people's minds for all sorts of covert purposes.
Right. And it also supposedly looked at the bigger picture. The neuroscience effects on culture, on court cases, the whole mental health industry, even how dissociative identity disorder is discussed in the DSM-5.
The idea of screen and scramble memory, manipulating memories, maybe even creating realities for people, that's deeply unsettling. If that's possible, what does it mean for, our basic right to our own thoughts?
Well, connecting those dots, Martinez claims that he and Bowart quietly set up a nonprofit, a 501c3.
Okay, called what?
The Freedom of Thought Foundation, and its whole purpose was cognitive liberty.
Cognitive liberty. Define that.
They defined it as the fundamental right to your own thoughts, your own identity, your own brain, your sovereign self. Martinez actually claims they were among the very first people championing this specific concept. He mentions a small group, including names like Colonel Fletcher Prouty and Colonel Tom Bearden.
Interesting.
And he adds this detail that psychiatrists and psychologists at the time were, in his words, terrified.
Terrified. Why?
Because, according to Martinez, many of their own clients had actually been abused in these various programs he's describing, which suggests, if true, this wasn't just some isolated thing.
Right, suggesting a wider impact. Okay, so Martinez argues M-Culture didn't just end in the 70s. He thinks it got even more robust.
Yeah, that's his claim.
And he's coming forward now because he thinks the public can finally handle this information.
That's what he says. Which leads us directly to his most, alarming claim, this extinction-level event. What on earth is he seeing that warrants language that strong?
Yeah, extinction-level event is intense.
He says he was recently asked to be chief advisor for a committee dealing with brain-computer interface, BCI, and international tech standards.
Okay, BCI standards, that sounds important.
Very. These committees, he explains, they set global public policy for how tech gets commercialized. And he argues that this specific interface, brain, computers, AI, and quantum tech, all merging.
That's the dangerous combination.
He says it will end everything. His words. Initiating what he calls the decapitation of our relationship to God.
Decapitation.
And transforming humans into, quote, cybernetic, silicon-based life forms. It's a profound shift he's describing. A loss of our organic nature, our free will, essentially.
That is a staggering claim. How does he explain how this could possibly happen, especially since he suggests most people will just walk right into it through voluntary compliance?
Well, his argument is that parts of the younger generations globally already feel pretty hopeless about humanity's future.
So they're open to merging with tech.
They're ready to fuse with it, he claims. And he stresses BCI isn't some standalone thing. He says it's deeply woven into, well, everything. Warfare systems, banking, healthcare, commerce, even culture.
It's underpinning the whole system.
That's the idea, and that's the extinction-level event, because, as he puts it, you no longer are an organic, free will human being. You're now fused, tied into the cloud.
Tied into the cloud, like losing individuality.
And autonomy. He even goes so far as to say that major current events we see in the news, like the Epstein story or wars in places like Gaza and Africa, are basically misdirection.
Misdirection. Distracting us from what?
From this underlying global push towards BCI integration. That's his assertion.
Okay, if this is such a massive, potentially species-altering event, who does Martinez say is behind it now, if it's not just the CIA in the shadows anymore?
He points directly at corporations, major players in the computer industry, cell phones, cell towers, satellites. He says they're aiding and abetting.
Aiding and abetting what, specifically?
The overall goal, he claims, is to, quote, upgrade or alter our species while killing it off.
Upgrade while killing off. That's paradoxical.
It is. He points to the World Economic Forum as being the sort of public arm of the groups deciding this. Groups he believes that want to reduce the global population and fundamentally change what being human means.
And he mentions figures like Yuval Noah Harari.
Yes, specifically Harari, who talks about humans being hackable animals. Martinez sees that as part of the same narrative.
So, corporate involvement, does he get specific? Does he name names, companies we'd recognize? Maybe Palantir, Peter Thiel?
Oh, absolutely. He's very direct. He asserts Palantir is aiding and abetting the end of our species.
How?
By putting in place what he calls the biggest gigantic surveillance system ever conceived. He actually predicts that Palantir and Peter Thiel will face lawsuits soon.
Lawsuits for what?
To force a public conversation and policy changes around this very issue, the right to your own brain, cognitive liberty.
And Elon Musk gets mentioned too.
He does. Martinez acknowledges they often frame these technologies, like Neuralink, as being for medical breakthroughs, like helping veterans.
Like the therapeutic argument.
But he counters that history shows tech rarely stays confined to its initial good use justification. It tends to spread into other, sometimes more worrying applications.
That dual-use issue. Martinez also talks about neurostrike weapons and targeted individuals. He connects this to things like Havana syndrome. What's the link he's making?
He states that Congress has actually had testimony presented about directed energy weapons being used on the public.
Really? Directed energy weapons?
Yeah. And he specifically flags the first lawsuit, he claims, dealing with targeted individuals, filed in Texas by an attorney named Anna Toledo. He connects this all back to systems and weapons being tested on people using electricity.
How does electricity fit in?
He describes humans as fundamentally electric beings. And he traces this technological progression, think pagers, then basic mobile phones, then smartphones.
Okay.
Each step, he argues, was a stepping stone that altered our central nervous system, created this effect of instantaneousness, needing instant information, instant gratification.
Preparing us psychologically.
Exactly. Preparing the public for the eventual fusion of BCI, AI, and quantum tech. He also notes, regarding Havana syndrome, those mysterious symptoms hitting diplomats that officials dealing with it privately admit the attacks seem to come from multiple sources.
Multiple sources, making it hard to pin down.
Right. Difficult to counter officially if you can't point to one single origin.
Okay, this raises a huge question. If these technologies, these discussions about BCI, directed energy, if they're happening at such high levels, potentially even in Congress, Why isn't this front-page news? Why isn't it widely discussed?
Well, Martinez's explanation involves something he calls a breakaway civilization.
A breakaway civilization. What does he mean by that?
He suggests it formed after the National Security Act of 1947. He claims that act essentially chopped everything in half, severing the free flow of information between the public sphere and deep state classified programs.
Creating secrecy that allowed these things to develop unchecked.
That's the implication, operating in total secrecy. He even believes RFK Jr. is aware of MKUltra, perhaps through investigating his father's assassination.
Interesting connection.
So these critical dialogues, he argues, happen outside public view, sometimes even bypassing normal congressional oversight.
Okay, let's shift to the effects. What are the physical and mental impacts Martinez claims are happening or could happen? He mentioned the COVID vaccine.
Yes, he refers to it as the kill shot. He claims, controversially of course, that people who received it might have nanotechnology inside them now.
Nanotechnology doing what?
Making their bodies act as energy chargers for the cloud. Essentially, turning people into biological power sources for some vast digital network.
That's a very radical idea.
Extremely. But even without that specific claim, he asserts something called synthetic telepathy is possible, transmitting signals that can alter moods or even induce what he terms modules of schizophrenia.
Like creating mental illness symptoms artificially.
Inducing states that mimic aspects of it, yes. Altering moods, thoughts, perceptions remotely. And he points to something we do see now, the trend of personality and voice cloning online.
Yeah, deep fakes and AI voice cloning are definitely here.
Right. And he notes, look, California might have passed some laws trying to protect individual brain data, but there's no global law to handle this kind of thing.
Which seems like a huge gap if these technologies are advancing so fast. What about the mental health crisis we see everywhere, especially in young people? Does Martinez connect that?
He connects it directly. He argues the explosion in kids on antidepressants isn't just, better diagnosis or societal stress.
What does he think it is then?
He claims it's a symptom of their nervous systems being actively co-opted.
Co-opted by what?
By electromagnetic weapons, constant Wi-Fi exposure, the sheer density of electrical fields in urban areas, all disrupting their natural biorhythms. He points to giving cell phones to kids as young as 5, arguing it fundamentally alters their brain development, their central nervous system, leading to zero attention span, he calls it, and severe withdrawal if the device is taken away.
Many parents would probably recognize those symptoms.
Indeed. And he references a prediction by a Princeton psychiatrist, Jose Delgado, decades ago, about a coming psycho-civilized civilization.
Psycho-civilized,
Yeah.
meaning controlled minds.
A society where behavior is managed technologically. Martinez believes we're now at the final aspect of that vision, where the user interface, the actual neuronal sequencing in our brains, could be controlled externally, affecting our intentions, our decisions.
Like a real-life Minority Report scenario, predicting or even directing behavior.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the chilling parallel he draws.
This is all deeply troubling.
Yeah.
Martinez has apparently known about aspects of this for decades. Why come forward so forcefully now? What was the trigger?
He points to what he calls the China factor as being a major catalyst recently.
The China factor. How does China fit in?
Remember that international committee he was advising on BCI standards?
Yeah.
He claims he discovered it was, financially disorganized, being actively blocked by the U.S. government, and, crucially, taking orders directly from China.
Taking orders from China on global BCI standards.
That was his discovery, and it alarmed him deeply. He believes China is now effectively dictating the global standards and protocols for brain-computer interface tech.
And he sees that as a huge national security risk.
Absolutely, because BCI isn't just about, cool gadgets. It's tied to critical infrastructure, weapons systems, surveillance networks, brain-controlled drones, even people writing computer code just by thinking.
Writing code with their brain.
He actually describes meeting someone who does that, and he found himself wondering about their psychological state, their pathology, and whether they were even doing it voluntarily.
Right. The question of consent looms large. So,
Yeah.
Given all this, for you, the person listening right now, what does Martinez suggest you actually do? He's quoted saying you can no longer be a spectator.
His primary focus is legal action. He believes the fight has to happen in the courts.
How? What kind of legal action?
He urges people to actively declare your rights, specifically by filing legal declarations in their local county recorder's office or possibly using the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code.
Filing what exactly? A statement?
A declaration asserting your cognitive liberty. stating clearly that your brain, your body, your thoughts are your sovereign property and are not to be tampered with or technologically manipulated without your explicit consent.
Kind of like staking a legal claim to your own mind?
Precisely. He says he's done this himself and even offers a template for others to use. He stresses that right now there's basically no established body of neurocognitive law to address these issues.
So individuals need to create that precedent themselves.
That's his strategy. And he issues a stark warning. If you allow yourself to become fused with the technology, you risk no longer being legally considered human.
Not human, meaning what?
Meaning you could lose all fundamental rights, become legally viewed as, quote, a product for somebody else, property.
Wow.
And he emphasizes silence is acquiescence. If you don't assert your rights now, you're implicitly agreeing. And he adds, there will be no second chances.
That's a powerful call to action. But it sounds like a tough legal battle. Martinez himself notes that even U.S. Supreme Court justices, quote, don't know shit about this stuff. How can a legal strategy possibly succeed against that level of ignorance or potential opposition?
He insists that everything starts and ends in the courts. It's the foundation. He believes filing these declarations puts the onus back on the system.
How so?
Because, he argues, so much of this relies on voluntary compliance. Think about clicking agree on app terms and conditions without reading them.
Right, we all do that.
His point is, by proactively declaring your boundaries, you're challenging that assumption of compliance. He urges people to be active, to hold their elected officials accountable, ask them why they aren't informing the public.
So it's about individual action creating collective pressure.
Yes. He frames it in very stark terms, the spiritual fight of all fights. Individuals have to step up and assert themselves now. And he specifically says, watch for a lawsuit targeting Palantir, Peter Thiel, and other companies involved. He seems to think that's coming.
Okay, this deep dive into James Martinez's claims certainly presents a chilling, very urgent picture of where we might be and where we might be headed. A battle, as he sees it, for our basic human autonomy.
And his message couldn't be clearer, really.
Right.
Declare your rights, take back your power, don't be passive.
Yeah.
And here's something to really mull over. Martinez explicitly described the people he believes are running us, deciding everyone's fate figures like Peter Thiel as, in his words, mostly mentally ill, disassociated people with no heart. He said talking to them was like talking to a cement wall.
That's quite a characterization.
It is. So the provocative thought is, if the individuals allegedly shaping humanity's future are seen in those terms by someone like Martinez, what does that truly imply about the direction we're being steered in? And maybe more importantly, what responsibility does that put on each of us, on you, to understand and maybe even challenge that direction?
A heavy question indeed. For anyone interested in exploring James Martinez's claims further, maybe looking at those declarations he mentioned.
You can find more information through James Martinez Media on Patreon, also Electric 111 Media, or just by searching online for Operation Mind Control James Martinez.
And he leaves us with this final stark reminder, doesn't he? This is your moment. Nobody's going to come help you. You have to completely take your power back now.